My guest today speaks French, but this episode of IO Table Talks podcast will be in English, simply because my French really sucks, big time. He is one of the top marketeers in Belgium, Champions League level, and with a strong digital DNA. Vast experience on the agency side, as a former CEO of Digitas LBI Belgium, and after that, Managing Director of iProspect and Chief Commercial Officer at Dentsu Belgium. In 2019, he transferred to the quote-unquote other side to become the Chief Customer Experience, Marketing and Digital Officer of D'Ieteren Automotive. And to make this introduction even more impressive, recently he was elected AMA Media Personality of the Year in Belgium. I'm so happy to have him as my guest. Welcome, José Fernandez.
Hello, Brian. Welcome, and thank you for those very kind words.
Well, there's no lie in those words, so it's true. So I'm really happy to have you here, José. But you and D'Ieteren are really well known in Belgium, but we also have listeners in the Netherlands who might not know D'Ieteren and might not know José Fernandez. So please, could you please introduce yourself first?
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, I am the current Chief Marketing Officer at D'Ieteren. For your Dutch-speaking audience, it's very easy. We are the PON of Belgium. If I say that, I think it will be very clear to everyone. We are the official importer of the Volkswagen Group brands in Belgium since 75 years this year. So together with PON, we are sharing this very special situation that we are the oldest importer of the Volkswagen Group brands in the world.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the different divisions?
Yes. So within the D'Ieteren Automotive part, we have the importer of the official brands of the Volkswagen Group. This includes the brands that you know, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, Seat, Cupra, and also Skoda. We have also a D'Ieteren Luxury and Performance division, which is in charge of importing the brand luxury brands of the Volkswagen Group, Lamborghini, Bentley, Bugatti, but also additional brands like Rematch, which is which is the fastest electric car, supercar, hypercar, as we said, worldwide. And we are also retailing in Antwerp, in this city of Antwerp, we are retailing Maserati, which is not belonging to the Volkswagen Group because Maserati is a brand of Stellantis, so the group which is also in charge of Peugeot, Ford, Opel, etc.
Well, that's a massive company, and you are in charge of marketing for all those divisions within automotive, actually.
Yes, so we are organized with brand and product marketing teams. Within each of the brands, there is a marketing team in place that is working with the factories and making sure that the right products is made at the right moment in the eyes of our customers. And my department is more especially in charge of what we call the Center of Excellence regarding marketing expertise, which covers data, marketing, digital, CRM, media, events, and customer experience / voice of the customer, which is actually measuring satisfaction for most of what we do. And we support our brands with those expertise in each market segment.
Well, I'm sure we're going to talk more about that later on in this podcast. But first, a little bit about this podcast. This season's Table Talk theme is how brands or organizations blend digital with authentic in the customer relationship. And just like the physical table talk dinners on our IO campuses, you've been there in Brussels.
Yeah,
this podcast, we will discuss this theme through 4 questions to our guests, and we're going to discuss those topics in this podcast. But before we're going to do this, I've asked you, what is your favorite cocktail that I can blend for you?
As I mentioned, the Negroni, which is a cocktail, if I'm not wrong, invented in 1922 in Milano, is a cocktail I discovered 3 years ago, not more than that, because it's coming back in town, we can say. And I like quite a lot the bitter taste of it, mixed with this very typical orange taste that is getting out of the cocktail, because it's also one of the principles. It's based on Cinzano, gin, and Martini vermouth. It's a very tasteful blend indeed.
And normally you should start with filling the tumbler with ice, with a lot of ice. But because we still have some questions to do within this, I will do that at the end. Otherwise, we have a kind of melted Negroni, which I don't think that you will like. But we're going to listen to the first question, and it's from Rowan Polane. He's a digital strategist at I.O.
Hi, José. How is Dieter preparing for the further digitalization of the customer journey, where not only marketing, but also sales, after sales, and brand experience will become more or less fully digital? In other words, to what extent do you need to create and manage local data and content yourself in order to provide a relevant experience?
So that's a very related to content, and the other one is related to data. And you are perfectly right. Most of our content, when it's related to products, we are not building cars. We are just selling them and retailing them and importing them in Belgium, which means that actually the content we receive for the factories, most of it is related to the products. As you know, if we want to make personalization working, especially in one-to-one communication and CRM, what matters is actually not only the product, but also the relationship you have with the people behind it. And there we must admit that there is not a lot coming from the factories. We are building that ourselves. How do we organize that? Actually, we have our own data universe. This is our own data, which is based on years of customer relationships. And to be very clear on that, we have today approximately 1.9 million customers in our databases. The contactability of those 1.9 million is something smaller because with GDPR rules and communication and consent and opt-ins, etc., we are not able to reach everyone in the database. But more or less, we are reaching 1.3 to 1.4 million customers on average. And we adapt our content in two elements. The content, which is actually, let's say, a push content, which is actually sent by email, this one could be highly personalized. We can do better, to be honest. Today, we are personalizing the content based on market segments, product segments, customer segments. But this is not yet the hyper-personalization, the one-to-one email. You get one, I get another one. They are totally different that we can dream of.
Sorry that I interrupt you. Is it a dream or is it a path that you actually are in today? Going to that hyper-personalized?
As far as I'm concerned, it's a dream because you mentioned my CV. And actually, I started before that in the CRM industry in a startup more than 20 years ago. When 20 years ago, there was also a question already. The question on the table was, how can we do real one-to-one? Everyone gets a message tailored to their needs, to the knowledge we have on the database. And we are confronting this to one piece of difficulty, which is always the same. You need to process and to provide personalized content at scale, which means actually if you send 1.9 or 1.4 million emails for all those customers, you need a content for each of them. Having this massive amount of different contents being built up at a reasonable cost is quite a nightmare for most marketeers and marketing organizations. The level of automation which is required to do that is high. Today, I'm really a strong believer that the technology is there to provide the spread, that the technology is there also to start producing content at scale. And you follow me arriving. We are talking here about generative AI and other technologies that will allow creativity at scale, which is not yet the case today when we talk about large contents.
Can you elaborate a little bit further on your thoughts on that, your view on that, specifically when it boils down to offering local, personalized, relevant experiences and content, with the help of generative AI?
Well, actually, the fact is that behind generative AI, and which is now, and we see that there is a progress practically on a week-to-week basis, the capabilities of generative AI to integrate with the systems we have, like we are using Salesforce for our CRM management. I think it's a challenge for agencies, as in particular for creative agencies. Totally understand that creation is not something you can give to a machine. That's what we say today. But actually, the more we go, the more we see that it's very difficult to see where is the boundary and the frontier between machine and human produce content, and there will be a moment in time where we will get to this singularity point where you will not see the difference. The difference is something which, when we talk about generative AI in the usage of data and the usage of CRM and content creation, it comes to a level where you can produce at scale very quickly the necessary contents you need to provide into, for instance, an email or a social media network or whatever, which will fit the needs and the behavior of the customer you are trying to reach. And we know that personalization by default increases all KPIs regarding engagement, regarding click-throughs, regarding all the KPIs related to the level of performance you can have with your digital assets. So it's something that will happen without any doubt. I'm confident it will happen. I have more philosophical questions behind it. What will happen with human creativity the day we are surrounded by machines that are doing that at the same level than we do? But the thing is that there is something we will not be able to transfer to machines, is attitude.
Yeah.
I am convinced of that. A machine will always be a machine with a rational thinking behind, just mimicking maybe feelings, but actually attitude and behavior is something very human. And I do believe in communication that transpose creativity in terms of emotions, and that will be difficult for machines to achieve.
Yeah, that's. I think that you're absolutely right in that, and I think that also machines will not be able to actually have the emotion of tasting a Negroni. So I'm going to go to the next step of making the Negroni. I just actually forgot to tell about the first step I did. I took 30 milliliters of gin, and now I'm going to add 30 milliliters of Campari to it. And while I'm doing this, we're going to listen to the second question, which comes from Doris Offerman, and she's a social media agent at IO.
Dear José, customer journeys are becoming increasingly digital and, in some cases, exclusively digital. But not all customers are equally digital savvy. How do you view the increasing focus on inclusivity for everyone within your target audiences, the digitals and less digitals?
So can you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts on, being inclusive also to the non-digitals? Because you guys are getting more and more digital, obviously.
Absolutely. I think this is a very, very interesting question. I will tell you something very personal, Brian, if you allow me. My mother is 88 years old, and she's getting progressively, she's very autonomous, she can do everything, but she's getting extremely frustrated by the fact that today she doesn't have any access anymore to her bank accounts. Could sound strange. She needs to have a mobile with a bank application on it. She doesn't have a clue how to operate it. So what's happening, and I see that around me, I'm operating that for her, because otherwise she will be totally blind. And this is something we see in the bank industry that I do not believe is going to come to the mobility or the car automotive as such. I want to make a difference between mobility services. We have mobility services like taxi services. This is a very physical service, which is also targeting a lot of people with disabilities on the one side, and also elderly people. They don't drive anymore, they take a taxi. Today we have a mobile application that allows people to, Uber is doing the same service more or less with the taxi. I say, well, more or less, but we are getting there. In terms of digitalization, we have a very efficient mobile application. The day everyone will need to use this application, we are going to be not inclusive anymore. What we have decided to do is to keep a phone call center available for people that have difficulties with digital access. That's what we are doing today, and we don't see any close future intention to change that massively. It will depend on customer adoption, and probably there will be a generation that is going to vanish, because I told you my mother is 88. In my family, I'm from Spanish origins. Most of my people, my family, have been over the 90 years old, some over the 100. But one day or the other, this generation is going to disappear. And then we will go into a generation that will be totally digital savvy. I have a very difficult understanding of these digital generations that have been built up by sociologues and marketeers. So mea culpa to all of us in this room. But actually, I don't believe that people over the 60 are less digital than people that are coming now in the 20s. Some of them are very digital and doing more things with the digital devices than people from 20 just looking at Instagram and TikTok videos. You know what I mean? So we need to be cautious on that. But we try to be extremely inclusive in what we do. And when the question was also about what are we going to do with our other services? Well, we are not yet, and we are not coming closer to having a full digital journey for car purchase. All the studies and surveys we are doing show that there is an audience for that, but this audience is limited to 15 to 20%, maybe 30 in a few years, of people that say, for me, it's like buying something on Amazon. I'm going on an application or a website. I configure the car as simple as possible. I order it, I pay for it, and you get it delivered to my home. This is happening already today in small, very small proportions. It's going to increase. But what we see is that people are still asking to see a car, to test it, and the dealer is still a very, very valid point of information.
Can I ask you a little bit further on that last remark? Because I'm curious about your thoughts on that and also the thoughts of Dieter as such. Because in the automotive industry, there is something as the agency model, which is the approach where you're actually bypassing the traditional dealership as become the retailer, more than the dealerships are more like the after service and all and the test drives and all those kind of things. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, to be very honest and transparent, we are investigating that. Most manufacturers have been announcing that they are moving into the agency model. The Volkswagen Group has also announced it. Since we are an independent importer like Pon in the Netherlands, we are not supposed to do that automatically, which is not the case for national sales companies. Volkswagen France is already getting into that, the Stellantis group also. It is not because we move to agency model that there are no more dealerships. Of course, they will keep the after sales because a car is still something you need to repair, even electric cars. But in the sales journey, they keep their importance. There will be agents instead of dealer that own the customer relationship. But for the end customer, and this could sound a little bit strange, for the end customer, there will be not a lot of difference with the experience today. The only thing that will improve is the full end-to-end customer experience, because one person or one organization will manage it from A to Z. Today we are managing from A to G, and then the dealer takes over. And then if the customer wants to get back to something digital, there is no real omni-channel approach in the automotive industry because there are too many stakeholders. So the agency model is going obviously to take ground and to develop. Most McKinseys of these worlds have been selling very well the approach. We see also strange things, because one of the reasons why agency model has been developing, there are different reasons. Cost savings, direct client and customer data control, digitalization, more hands-on on the A to Z customer journey. It's a mix of all of that. But in the end, we see very digital brands. I'm talking, for instance, about Tesla, that are going the other way around. They started to sell cars fully online, and today Tesla is buying dealerships because they see that the physical touch point for cars is a major touch point they need to have. So in the future, there will be probably less dealers because there are a lot of dealers around the corner everywhere. You don't need that large amount of dealers to sell your cars, but you will still have dealers that are doing their job to have a proper service, and they also need to
test drives, experience more.
Drive. Everything which is related to experience, you're perfectly right, is going to take place still for quite a number of customers on the dealership. We have a survey that shows that 72% in 2023, 72% of our customers consider the dealership as the first source of information when it comes to buying a new car. They don't mention digital at first. So that's very strange because we are both in this digital era since many, many decades, and we believe that this is the way to go. But actually, we see that the omni-channel approach, going from online to offline and getting back, is something we absolutely need to implement very quickly so that the customer can move very easily between. They don't see the border. We see them because we have departments and specialized people around it. But for the customer, they move easily across the border and they don't need an offline-online journey. They need an omni-channel journey. They need a journey.
A consistent journey. That's what they need. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to the next step of your Negroni. I'm getting thirsty. And
Me too.
that is, well, I'm going to put the part of martini in it, equal also 30 milliliters. And while I'm doing this, we're going to listen to Thomas Spranger. He's an account director at IO.
Dear José, more and more digital channels are being added to the marketing communication mix, such as online communities and social media platforms. What process D'Ieteren follows when it comes to making choices about which touch points to actively deploy or not? Is that decision-making process data-driven or more based on gut feeling and trial and error?
For example, when you look at Porsche, we know that Porsche is also active, for example, on touchpoints like Instagram and TikTok. And I was wondering, is this dictated by the playbook from Porsche, or is it the decision that you guys make from D'Ieteren?
Very interesting question. If I will get back to the question of your IO colleague that says, is this something you are doing on a gut feeling base? If by gut feeling you mean innovation and test and learn approach means innovation and creativity and testing, definitely we are innovating and testing from time to time. But most of our data decisions, media decisions and touchpoint decisions are based on data. That's for sure. We analyze audiences. We analyze what are the audiences that best perform, the touchpoints that better perform. And we have a mix which is always evolving. To get back to your question, Brian, indeed, the decisions we make on our media mix are purely 100% D'Ieteren based. Of course, there are some guidelines that come from the factories. For instance, we don't use TikTok for brands like Porsche in Belgium today. We have been testing TikTok for minor brands out of the big brands, because we still have concerns about TikTok audiences, and not from a security point of view, which is something maybe some people will take into consideration, but mainly because of an audience point of view. I give you one example. We have launched 1 year ago the Microlino, this small urban electric vehicle, which is iconic because it reflects the former BMW Isetta, and we tested on these small brands. We have been innovating and testing TikTok. And what we have seen is that actually we are not talking to an audience which is interesting us, which is actually a Belgian-based people. We have been spreading over our community and content to people in Australia, in Canada, in markets that we are not present. So it could be very interesting, but from a media and performance point of view, it doesn't make any sense. So we stop it. On the other side, we see that Instagram is performing very well when we can capture the audiences that are locally based, and there Instagram is giving much more granularity on the segments and the segmentation you can operate. And so it works from on the bottom of the funnel, more of it, so more the consideration and purchase acquisition phase in the funnel. But actually, those decisions we usually make them with a strong view on what are the data. Maybe to be noticed also, we have decided to internalize and to in-house our digital media expertise. So today we have a team of 8 persons in media that are in charge of supporting our brands with their knowledge. This covers social media, programmatic, online video, obviously, but also other touch points that are related to search and SEO, SEA in the search. And also for the traditional media, we have an internal team of planners. So we are able today to understand what TV is doing compared to online video and to address both in the media mix. Last but not least, we have seen that we have increased a lot our digital mix in our total mix. And we have seen that we have reached a kind of plateau where the performance is dropping. And we have on some channels what we call a digital saturation. For instance, I mentioned Instagram. On some brands, we see that the more we add, nothing is happening. We are decreasing our performance. So for those brands, we are reducing actually our digitization because we see that some what we can call traditional media are performing a little bit better on brand building and longer term. And now when we talk about traditional media, what is still traditional media? If you look to out of office is digitalized. If you look to TV, a large part of it is digitalized.
All is digital.
So I believe in an ecosystem which will become 100% digital, but not 100% digital channels.
I want to go to the last question, but before I do that, I am going to take an orange because we need to have the orange peel, which is part of the Negroni. And while I'm getting this off the orange, we're going to listen to Lindy van der Wetering, who's a producer at IO.
Hi, José. Dieter is committed to innovation. How do you capitalize on innovation opportunities, new product and services offering, and new business models without losing your authenticity and credibility?
When you look at your website, you see this slogan or claim, we're developing the mobility services of the future. Innovation is, I think, key at Dieter and also with Group Mobility Solutions, I guess, which is a central part of your organization who's doing a lot of innovations, or am I wrong?
I will correct that slightly. Group Mobility Solution is our commercial hand to provide our customers with the best solution in terms of mobility, which goes far beyond the car, as they say, that they claim. So Group Mobility Solution is really definitely started 2 years ago and is going to grow into our central spoke to provide our customers, and in particular our B2B customers, companies, with the most appropriate set of services and products they need to secure the mobility for their own employees. That's what GMS is doing, and indeed they are innovating, of course, in terms of commercial approach and joining also all the services, products we have in our portfolio to make sure that our customers are facing one single point of contact with all the knowledge around them. Now, when we talk specifically about innovation, we have been following the book of the Kinsey tankers and speedboats approach. That's something that a lot of people in innovation and technology will know. D'Ieteren is a old lady. You know, I told you in the beginning of the podcast, more than 200 years existence, which means that we are running like a tanker on some things. Some years ago, we started Labbox, which is our startup studio, with the aim to look at the market with a fresh view, no constraints, no big corporate structure, a couple of clever guys looking at the market and looking for new mobility solutions. And over the years, they have been providing us with Poppy, our car sharing company, which is here in Antwerp and in Brussels, in Ghent, in Leuven, presence, and in Mechelen with quite some success. We have developed Skipper, multimodal 100% application-based application on mobile, which is today present also in France. We have disinvested a little bit from this company because actually to let the company grow, we needed to go abroad, and Belgium is our market for D'Ieteren. So we let other shareholders getting into the capital so that we can develop a Skipper abroad. We have been developing Leasy, the first ever fully digital-based leasing company for used cars, for second-hand cars. Never happened before, aiming at small companies and independent professionals that doesn't want to afford a totally new car buy, and they say, for me, I can buy a recent second-hand car, which is answering my needs, and we provide them with leasing. All these initiatives have been onboarded and started within our Labbox. And when the initiatives are going to grow, then we bring them into a new organization, which is the case, for instance, for Eddy, our Electrify by D'Ieteren services. They were into the Labbox structure, but now they have grown to a massive company of more than 150 persons, selling solar panels, load stations, And then we need to industrialize the approach. So we have created a vehicle within D'Ieteren that is in charge of EDI.
When you look at all the innovations that you're talking about, it's all within the domain of mobility, which I think is quite logical, because in order to stay authentic and true to the DNA of D'Ieteren, it's mobility. But some companies are also looking at, other markets, other segments when they look at their future. How's D'Ieteren looking at that point? Are you going to stick within the mobility domain, or are you looking a bit outside of that?
We want to stay authentic and true to mission statement that says that we want to provide people with a fluent, affordable and sustainable mobility for everyone, which means that mobility is at the center of our activities for D'Ieteren Automotive. So yes, I can answer that we want to keep into that segment. And our ambition is very clear. We want to become the number one provider of individual mobility in Belgium for every citizen. Point which is for us also important is the sustainability aspect, which is growing now. Cars are part of the problem, so they are part of the solution. 21% of CO2 emissions come from the transports in Belgium. And out of those, 12% are coming from passenger transport. So we have at least to do something. We are a leader in that market. So we are responsible for part of those emissions. And we have a clear statement to grow that. So if we look at the future of it, it could be something related to sustainability, but always in line with mobility and how we get there.
I think that I'm going to move as well to, I think, the final step. And then you're going to be the judge, José, because I'm not sure if my blend is what you expect, but, still have some confidence. I'm going to put the ice in it, because that is extremely important. I'm going to put the ice in it like this. So, yes, no. Enough ice, and then we need to stir it a bit, also to let the ice melt also a bit, to get the sharp edge, I think, out of it. So this is enough stirring probably to do. And then we gonna put the orange peel like a garnish as well in it. So, the judge.
Well, this deserves at least a beautiful picture. I hope you are seeing this. This is a perfect Negroni made by Mr. Brian. So let's taste it, and thank you so much for this very welcoming approach to this podcast.
Thank you very much, and look forward to what you think about it.
Just perfect.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm so
I
happy.
like it.
I'm really happy.
Just perfect. So you need to start with a bar very soon.
Well, probably I'll
a cocktail bar somewhere.
I'll probably do that.
In Amsterdam.
I'll probably do that, but probably in my house. Thanks again for this great talk, José, and thanks of being so open and transparent with all your answers.
Thanks to you for the invitation, and congratulations to your team.
Thank you.